Alright, what is going on, guys? It's Stab, and today we have the Week 2 team builder for the GBL, but before we get into that, I just wanted to give a little disclaimer at the beginning that last week it came to my attention that the video ended up being 38 minutes long. Now, if you're like me, you have a pretty busy life and other things to do. It was not intended to be that long. It's been a while since I recorded a team builder. I didn't mean to ramble on, but basically, the little disclaimer at the beginning of this one will be there will be an annotation on the side at the bottom of the screen somewhere for you to go right to the team builder process of the 3 sections, if you will, of these videos. That is the most important one for you to watch, obviously. So if you click that little button, it'll send you right to the team building process. So yeah, without further ado, we're going to actually get into today's video. What is up, guys? It's Stab, and today we're back with Week 2 team builder for the GBL. We are taking on not Sean. It was originally Sean's team, but we had to find a replacement for him just because I have no idea where he is. And instead, we were taking on Blaze and the Cinnabar Chimchars. It has a nice ring to it. I think that's his name. Pretty sick looking logo too, which should be somewhere down here on the screen for you guys to look at. But we are facing a pretty strong team. Before we read off his team, I will just refresh your memory with my own team. It should be on the right side of the screen, but anyway, we have the potential to bring Victini, Togekiss, Tangrowth, Crocodile, Selgor, technically Zebstrike, but I will address that in a second, and Garen Black, Lucario, Doublade, and Mawile. Now, originally we did have Zebstrike, as you saw that last week. It was brought, it took a Willows from the Rotom, and it died. So we made a change. Instead we picked up another fast electric type. We sacrificed a little bit of speed for some more coverage options and some more offensive capabilities, and that is Raichu. Now Raichu is pretty underrated in the format. It is as fast as the Lottie, so base 110. So should bring a pretty solid addition to the team. I was gonna make a transaction video, but it was only one, and I did make some other ones as well for later weeks, so I'll do those together. But so we have Raichu instead of Zebstrika. Yeah, that's basically it. Now, as far as Sean / Blaze's team, Blaze is a temporary sub, at least for now, so it's kind of both their teams. But anyway, so he has the ability to bring Mega Altaria, Weavile, Zelf, Nidoqueen, Gligar, Beautifly, Roselia, Talonflame, Jigglypuff, and Mightyena. Now, it is obviously not the most powerful team that we've ever faced in franchise history, so try to keep down the hate in the comments. You guys who are more experienced in the draft format will obviously know that this is not a very strong team, but obviously he does still have some threats and could cause a problem should we overlook some of his other ones. But so the first section of this, because I'm dividing my team builders into 3 sections now, so basically the first one will be just general points that I noticed the first time I looked at his team. So I didn't do any in-depth prep for exactly what I was going to bring, or even study his mons too often, or not too often, but in too much detail. But some of the general points that I noticed right off the bat, just reading off these names, his team is pretty slow. Now obviously you see a Weavile, a Talonflame, and a Weavile, a Talonflame, and that's pretty much it. And his Zelf too. His Zelf is really fast. It's 115 like Raikou. So those 3 are all over base 110, so they are pretty fast. But outside of that, you drop down to base 80, which is Mega Altaria, of course. So Altaria is not fast until it gets up a couple Dragonites, which of course we're going to try to prevent. But it's a very deep speed drop this week, so if we control the speeds from those 3, we should be safe on that regard. Now secondly, his team is quite frail. You notice that he has some pretty strong attackers, but most of his attackers are not bulk oriented. So Weavile, of course, is very frail. Zelf does not have very good defenses. He has some really performing lacking mons such as Beautifly and Jigglypuff that have terrible defenses. Mightyena is both slow and it obviously is not very bulky. Talonflame gets worn down by rocks, so really outside of the Nidoqueen and outside of the Gligar, he doesn't have much. And Roselia too, but Roselia without the Violite is pretty weak as well. So yeah, quite frail, pretty slow. He lacks any immediate hitters, so obviously Mega Altari is a very powerful offensive threat with Pixelate return and all that crap, but he needs Dragon Dances to get a solid attack stat up. Weavile is a strong attacker, but it gets worn down by Blade Orb. And outside of that, he really doesn't have any immediate hitters. I guess you could consider Talonflame's Bravebird an immediate threat, but of course it'll take recoil damage every time it goes for it and be forced to go for Roost or die. So, yeah, I mean, Azelf has pretty usable special attack, so that could be a problem, especially with a Life Orb, but that's another one where it doesn't have strong enough base attack without a boosting item to deal very much damage, at least comparatively to other things. So we've got, it's a pretty slow team. It's quite frail. It doesn't have an immediate offensive threat outside of, like I mentioned, Talonflame's Bravebird. It's really weak to rocks. So Mega Altaria, before it Mega Evolves, takes 25% because it's a flying type. Weavile is weak to rocks, so it takes 25%. Beautifly takes 25% as a flying type, and then Talonflame, of course, the bane of Talonflame's existence, is Stealth Rock, as it takes a whopping 50% as it comes in. So very weak to rocks. Secondly, it's, well, not secondly, but down the line, so slow, frail, not very much offensive presence. It's weak to rocks. Fifth, it's susceptible priority. So you'll see in my team builder, but I have two forms of priority on my team, and one of them, Mega Altaria, is weak to. Weavile is weak to. Azelf doesn't appreciate. Jigglypuff definitely doesn't appreciate. And then we also have another form. I'll just tell you guys right now. We're bringing Extreme Speed on Lucario, and Extreme Speed is important because, like you'll see in the team building section, that it out prioritizes Talonflame's Bravebird being a +2 as opposed to +1 because of Gale Wings. So that is a nice advantage our team has as well. Lastly, it has limited walls, so you can run a defensive Altaria, but I think because of his team structure, he needs a more offensively oriented one. Nidoqueen is quite bulky for what it is, and then of course you have Gligar, which is very, very strong on the defensive, physically defensive side. So that is pretty much what I noticed initially, without any involvement in specific mons or any of that. So now the second to last part before we get into the actual team is some general points I noticed about the actual Pokemon he has on his team. So firstly, being as Mega Altaria, again we are back with the color coding code from last week. Again, green being things that I think he definitely will bring, yellow things I'm kind of on the fence about, and then red being something that I definitely think he'll leave on his bench and at home and won't make an appearance against our team. So first thing is Mega Altaria. Mega Altaria is not only his Mega, but it's one of his strongest attackers. It's definitely something that he'll bring to our game, at least I believe so. So like I labeled it its main offensive threat, and it really is, just because its coverage and its strong fairy type physical attacks is something that can wear down my team rather easily. The match, because of the offensive pressure I put on him, it forces him to run a more offensive variant, so I don't expect like the defensive Dragon Dance or like a Cleric specially attacking one. I think that he will just go straight up Dragon Dance offensive. It might be Adam, it might be Jolly, I'm not too sure on that one, but it'll definitely be a more offensive minded Altaria. So secondly, another green Pokemon is Weavile. Weavile gives him the speed that he needs, it gives him priority, it gives him a very strong knockoff, so there's really no reason for him not to bring Weavile. Azelf is colored yellow. I think he could bring it. I think he could leave it home. I mean, I do have Crocodile to threaten it, I do have priority to threaten it, I do have strong attacks to kind of mitigate its effectiveness. At the same time, it is very strong offensively. Not very strong, but it is a strong option, especially for a team that lacks very strong options. He could also bring it as a possible Sash or Rock set, kind of a lead or utility, just because he does have the Nidoqueen and the Gligar that could also set up rocks, but he might need other things in those move slots to handle my team more effectively. Nidoqueen is another one that I definitely expect him to be there, and I don't know exactly what kind of Nidoqueen it'll be, but it'll definitely come. Its coverages offensively are very, very strong against my team. It could be possibly straight life or modest attacker, or it could be stealth rocking and maybe three attacks. Earth Power, Ice Beam, Thunderbolt do a decent job covering all the mons on my team, and then he could bring like a Sludge Wave or a Flamethrower if he wanted to as well, because I do have some steel types and I do have the Togekiss potentially, so it's just a good mon for him to cover a lot of the bases he wouldn't have otherwise. Now, originally for Gligar, I colored this yellow. I'm changing this to green for two main reasons. Number one, his only way to effectively remove hazards against him on his team, which he obviously needs because he has things like Weavile and Talonflame, is Defog. So a Defog on Defog on Gligar, Defog on Beautifly. Talonflame might get Defog, but if he brings that, that's strange. That'll be on Sysops for Dallas. The stuff I see on Showdown, definitely gonna make it there if he brings a Defog variant of Talonflame. But because Defog is only hazard removal, he has to bring his most effective Defogger, which is in fact that Gligar, which against my team Gligar is not that strong as a Defogger, just because I will get into what I decided to do with my sets in a little bit. Second reason that I think that Gligar is now a definite bring is because if you look at his team, outside of Mega Altaria, he does not have a very effective switch into a V-Create from Victini. Gligar is really his only immediate stop to that. Mega Altaria can switch in, but I will get into why that's not the most reliable switch in the team building section. What do we got next? Beautifly is a shittier Venomoth. It's really slow. It only reaches like 250 timid, I think. So for a bug type, that is insanely like molasses level in speed. It adds to his rock weakness. So like I mentioned, it's one of the many mons on his team that's very weak to stealth rock, and it does get him a whole lot if he brings it, other than something that's weak to rock. So he doesn't have it doesn't add any value to his team structure at all, in my opinion at least. Secondly, you have Roselia. Roselia could come to potentially stack hazards to potentially take, I don't know, some weak water attacks maybe, but he has a pretty poor defensive typing against my team overall, just because I do have a strong fire type. I do have plenty of mons to get ice coverage to wear it down, and like I mentioned in the general analysis, it does, after it loses its Violate, it's not a very strong defensive option anymore. And like I mentioned, and like I kind of alluded to, I guess, the coverage moves and the fact that so many things on my team get ice coverage, get fire coverage, it deters him from trying to set up hazards with it. So yeah, I don't think it'll be a very good option for him to bring. He could still bring it. It definitely has merit in the fact that it could hazard stack me, especially since you'll see in my team builder why that could be effective. But yeah. And then Talonflame is another definite bring. Like I said, Talonflame is the closest thing to an immediate offensive threat, and it's easily worn down by rocks. It struggles with my bulky attackers just because they can take a hit. So like things like Blastoise and I guess Rotini even can take a Brave Bird and then fire off a coverage move to kill it. Jigglypuff, I have written here, it's literally bad. Like it gets him no substance to his team that he wouldn't have otherwise with another mon. But because he's subbing, he was not allowed to make some substitutions. Well, not substitutions, some swaps, being an expansion team of sorts. He will be able to do that next week, but he has to roll with the team as is for now. And the last is Mighty Yen. He could bring that. I don't really think he can. I don't think he would, just because number one, it's slow. It has pretty underwhelming power. It has access to Howl. It has a Sucker Punch, but Sucker Punch doesn't do a whole lot with the Sucker Punch doesn't do a whole lot unboosted off his mediocre attack. And then, like I said, he could boost up with Howl, and I think this thing gets worked up too. I'm not too sure about the second one, but he will struggle to find ways to set up, just because I do have a lot of things on my team that can kill it pretty easily. Anyway, without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump over to the team builder and see exactly what I brought against Blaze for. Alright guys, the moment you've all been waiting for. Let's go ahead and kick off the actual team that we brought against Blaze this week, and the first Pokemon we have returning from last week is Mega Blastoise. Now, Mega Blastoise this week will provide some overall solid coverage against the team. It hits most things for super effective damage, and it's a secondary defensive check to Talonflame and Weavile. Now I can take a Brave Bird from Talonflame, and it's a solid knockoff check to Weavile. It's a solid check to Weavile's knockoff. It'll be the immediate switch into a lot of the knockoffs you might go for. So firstly, the moves, we are carrying Water Pulse, Aura Spear, Dark Pulse, and Ice Beam. Now, on his team, when you see that over there, and you saw me read it off in the pre-game of sorts, that he does have a Umbreon, and Umbreon has the ability to synchronize. Now, because Blastoise does not have any reliable recovery itself, and I do not have any heal builder on this team today, we are not going to risk the synchronized burn from Scald, so we're just going to rock with Water Pulse. So it hits as hard as Surf, and what that means is with Blastoise's Mega Evolution ability in Mega Launcher, it actually gains a stab on the any move that takes advantage of Mega Launcher. So Surf is base power 90. Water Pulse has an original base power of 60, but with the ability it goes up all the way to 90. So it's as powerful as Surf, and it has the niche Confusion Hacks chance. So hopefully we can pull out our inner Trev and take advantage of that today. So like I mentioned, it we don't have to risk the burn. So it OHKOs Talonflame. It actually does more to Talonflame than Scald does. It can OHKO an offensive Nidoqueen. Like I said, I expect his Nidoqueen to be more offensive in nature. If it's a max HP Nidoqueen, it does 99 minimum. And it's also a very good neutral stab. He doesn't really have a ton of water resist on his team, and aside from like Roselia, but even that's not a water resist when its Life Orb is not Life Orb. Eviolite is off. Secondly, we have the Aura Spear. Aura Spear is just as a general good attack to use against things that are neutral to Water Pulse. So we can knock out Weavile. It kills like 3 Weaviles. Mightyena dies, and it's actually a 3-hit KO on Umbreon, which doesn't sound like a lot, but considering Umbreon has very, very high special defense, a 3-hit KO is very solid. Also because it can't just set up a curse in my face and expect to win that battle. So Blastoise is not set up water for that, and I don't expect an offensive Umbreon anyway, but in case he were to bring that, it's a good check to that. So Dark Pulse is pretty much only there to hit the Azelf. Azelf can't actually OHKO us with anything. Thunderbolt and Grass Knot both do like 70% max. I think one of them does like 80, but the point is it can't OHKO us and we can kill it. Granted, early game especially, I'm not going to risk that on Blastoise and losing it that early in the game, but it's there if we need it. Lastly, we have Ice Beam. Ice Beam OHKOs any variant of Gligar bar a max Spadef variant, and I think even to have a chance to live, it has to be a Spadef nature, and it has to have at least 244 in Spadef, so it needs to be basically maxed Spadef to live any Ice Beam at all. It 2-hit KOs Altaria, like I mentioned in my pre-game analysis. I do expect an offensive variant, and even max HP I think is still 2-hit KO'd, but like I said, I expect a fully offensive Dragon Dance variant to get as much power behind it as possible, and we can 2-hit KO that pretty easily and take a return. Not comfortably, but it doesn't do as much as you think. I don't remember the exact calc on that, unfortunately. So 2-hit KOs any Nidoqueen, bar a max HP max Spadef variant, and like I said, I think he has to use Nidoqueen's coverage to his advantage and run at least some offense, taking away from the defensive capabilities. And then lastly, Beautifly, it needs to be almost max Spadef to live, if he even brings it. We were rocking Modest again. We not rocking Modest last week. We're rocking it again. It just allows us to get as much special attack as possible. Like I say, you can see that healthy 405 right there. That's a hell of a lot. EV wise, so the bulk, so the defense and the HP 192 HP, 4 defense and max special attack with 60 speed. Now the bulk makes sure that we can take at least 1 hit from any type of Talonflame, even like a Choice Banded variant. is not able to OHKO us, and we can just click Water Pulse and kill it. We take the knockoffs from Weavile as well as we can, and then we have 60 in speed to outspeed a min speed Gligar and kill with Ice Beam, so that's nice. Secondly, we're bringing another star and a very, very important mon in this game, being our Lucario. We didn't bring Lucario last week. It could have put him working as the team that he brought, kind of, but this week I'll have lots of fun. And the main purpose for Lucario is to have an offense and have a physical attacker with priority that matches up well against most of his team, and also it out-prioritizes Talonflame. So if we want to look at the moves here, we are rocking the Life Orb for maximum damage output, and the Justified ability just because he does have a variety of knockoff users, and we can get a boost from that. We're looking here, we have Bullet Punch, Close Combat, Ice Punch, and Extreme Speed. Pretty much all the moves we need. I'm going to go ahead and explain these. So the first move we have is Bullet Punch. It's a stab priority. It actually kills uninvested Weavile after rocks, and it has a chance to actually just straight up OHKO it. It's not a very good one. Like, I think it does 86 to 100. So not a high chance, but hey, you never know. It can 2-hit KO most variants of Mega Altaria. Jigglypuff dies unless it's max HP, max defense, which, I mean, is a really weird. It's weird that he would bring Jigglypuff in the first place, but it's also weird if he were to run a defensive Jigglypuff. That just sounds bad. So I misordered my thing on the sheet. So Close Combat is the second attack. Close Combat OHKOs Weavile, it OHKOs Mightyena. Umbreon needs at least 172 EVs in defense to have a chance to live. So pretty much this thing solidly beats a lot of pretty it solidly beats a lot of threats just clicking its stab close combat, because I do have 350 attack, which is a hell of a lot. Also, it puts an offensive Altaria, so say he switches in Altaria to take the damage aimed at something like his Weavile or his Umbreon or something like that. After one close combat to an offensive variant, it's actually in range of Bullet Punch, so we can hit it with close combat, wait for it to Mega Evolve, and then get it with the Bullet Punch and kill it. So that's a pretty easy way to get rid of that. So thirdly, we have Ice Punch. This was kind of the odd man out. Well, it wasn't technically the odd man out, but it doesn't do as much as the other attacks. So it 2-hit KOs most Altaria with Ice Punch, and then Ice Punch plus Bullet Punch easily kills an offensive variant, and then Beautifly just dies. So that's pretty good. It has a chance to kill max HP Roselia through its Violate. It 2-hit KOs Gligar, and it 2-hit KOs all variants of Nidoqueen except for like a maximum defense one. So that's pretty nice. Now, when I was building, I had those three moves, and then I had a empty slot that I didn't really know what I should have. Coverage wise, it really didn't need anything else. We already hit everything we needed to, so I decided to attack on Extreme Speed, and the number one reason for that is because Talonflame's Gale Wings priority Brave Bird has +1 priority. Now, Extreme Speed has +2 priority, so it's a nice way for us to outspeed it. It also outspeeds Weavile's Ice Shard, and now Ice Shard won't do very much to us, but because we have the Life Orb, we kind of need to preserve as much HP as we can. I don't expect Lucario to survive the whole game at all, but we need to keep it around as long as we can, just because it does do so much work against his team. So as far as Extreme Speed does around 49 to 58% to an offensive Talonflame. So unless I get absolute min rolls, it actually can just straight up kill it after a rock switch in. So, and then a Bullet Punch plus an Extreme Speed just straight up kills Weavile. So Lucario can put in a very nice amount of work against Blaze's team, and I'm looking forward to using it today. Because his team is so slow, we could just run in Adamant Nature. The EVs wise, we have as much defensive bulk with the HP and the defense as we can to take a knockoff from Mightyena, take a knockoff from Weavile. Now, early game, I'm obviously not going to use this as a knockoff switch in, just because we do need our Life Orb to do good damage to the rest of his team. But late game, if I need a knockoff switch in, we can rock with +1 and probably clean up the game at that point, because the two priority moves, the Extreme Speed and the Bullet Punch, do so much work against his team overall. Anything else? Max max attack, obviously, to do as much damage as possible, Adamant Nature, and then the speed is just enough to outspeed a jolly Mighty Yenna, but that reaches 262, we reached 263, so that's pretty nice. A Selgor is actually the third mon. Now, a Selgor is obviously very fast. It's taking on a more of a utility role this game. It's there to check. So we have the, like I said, we have a Selgor, and I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself sometimes, not reading off basic things. We have Unburden, just because that was the best ability we could have this game. I don't need the Unburden speed, obviously, but we do have the Focus Sash just to survive a hit if we need to, and plus a cool plus it provides a cool mechanic that I will explain in just a second here. So moves wise, we have Buzz, Hidden Power, Rock, Final Gambit, and Encore. Now, like I said, its purpose is check Talonflame and Weavile, potentially be a Final Gambit nuke, and work as a pivot. Now, Bug Buzz is the main stab. We actually have a chance to kill Weavile, it OHKOs Mighty Yenna, and it kills a Zelf. So even with that little attack investment that we'll explore at the end of the Zelf analysis. Now, Hidden Power Rock kills Talonflame after rocks. We can't one-shot it because we're not Life Orb, but after it takes a rock switch in, we just click Hidden Power Rock. We survive the Brave Bird because of our Focus Sash, and then we can knock it out that way. Beautifly dies as well. Beautifly is a lot frailer than Talonflame, so we can just click the Hidden Power Rock and knock that out. Now, Final Gambit is really cool because I actually took a page out of my friend Lars El Scizor, to you general fans, and actually studied what my moves can do, my little niche moves can do before I went to the battle. I was surprised that they didn't work the way I thought they would. So no hidden power flying shenanigans this week. We have Final Gambit instead. Now, something cool about Final Gambit is you can actually run Final Gambit while having a Focus Sash. Now, it basically negates the Focus Sash. So if I attack a Altaria and I do my 364 damage worth of damage from Final Gambit, because Final Gambit works off users' HP, it will knock it out. The only way you can actually survive with Focus Sash and Final Gambit is if you do enough damage to bring yourself down to 1 HP and not them. So it still works, it ignores the Focus Sash, so that doesn't look as weird as it originally did. Final Gambit is actually really cool because it actually knocks out most of his team. So it knocks out the Altaria, it knocks out the Weavile, it knocks out the Azelf. If I get Umbreon to around 90%, I can just click Final Gambit and kill that. Nidoqueen, after one rock switch in, goes down. Gligar is really bulky defensively, as you guys probably know, but it doesn't have a very good HP stat, so we can just straight out knock that out. We knock out the Beautifly, knock out the Roselia, knock out the Talonflame, knock out the Jigglypuff, and knock out the Mighty Yenna. So basically, we have a good chance to get a Final Gambit kill on literally any of these things on his team. Lastly, we're packing the Encore. Encore pretty much can Encore his support mons, so his Nidoqueen, his Gligar, his Roselia, into some sort of hazard, and take advantage of that. Granted, we don't have the spinner, but we can use it to get into one of our threats. And because we have stuff like Lucario that resists both forms of hazards and is immune to toxic spikes, we should be good there. And we can also Encore Umbreon into like a curse or a different status and use that to our advantage as well. Modest Nature was really not something we didn't need anything else. We didn't need Timid because we outspeed his whole unboosted team. Modest. We have max HP, which puts us at 364 for just a maximum power on Final Gambit. Our 236 speed allows us to outspeed a fully invested Jolly Weavile. Granted, I don't expect him to, well, actually, I can't say that because I've never battled him before, but on fast mons like Weavile, you should never run max speed unless you need to in draft format. I think it's just a waste of EVs and a waste of potential investments that you could make in other areas. But if he does make a max Weavile, we can just outspeed that 384 as opposed to 383, and then 20 insp attack, because that was the rest that I had left, and it hits decently hard. Like, that doesn't seem like a whole lot now that you look at the number, but that just gives us some offensive presence. Returning from last week is the Behemoth, the Kyurem Black right here. And this week we're rocking the Life Orb again. Now we're rocking 3 attacks and Roost this time. So we have Ice Beam, Iron Head, Fusion Bolt, and Roost. And this provides solid coverage. It does what it's supposed to do. It's a wall breaker, and it has coverage to hit his entire team. Ice Beam is the first attack. It's pretty spammable, as we went over with Blastoise. Ice Beam actually hits a lot of his team for super effective damage. It kills max HP Altaria from full. Nidoqueen needs at least 88 speed def or a special defensive nature to have a chance to live. And unless we get a min roll, Mighty Animal will just straight up go down to Ice Beam. Obviously, a 2 KO's Roserade as well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then Beautifly dies to any attack, so not really worth mentioning. But yeah, I do expect a more offensive Nidoqueen, but he could obviously invest 88 speed def to live if he wanted to. So secondly, we have Iron Head, and the physical attacks were pretty much to hit the Weavile and the Talonflame, stuff that was either neutral or resisted the Ice Beam, basically. So Iron Head against the basic Weavile is super effective, and it just kills it. Jigglypuff, it dies. And then Fusion Bolt is the last move other than the Roost, and that just kills a Talonflame pretty easily. And we can live a Brave Bird, of course. So that's nice. And then we have Roost to recover off attacks done to us, but also to keep ourselves healthy because of Life Orb recoil. So you might notice that we were running 2 physical attacks and a Modest nature, and I'll explain that in a second. So Modest obviously powers up our Ice Beam as much as it can, and then we have 28 attack EVs, which even with a negative nature is enough to guarantee both a kill with Iron Head on Weavile and Oko a Talonflame, even if it's a rogue max HP variant. We can just click Fusion Bolt and knock that thing out. 236 in speed to outrun a Jolly Mega Altaria, and enough special attack to one-shot any max HP variant of Altaria with Ice Beam. Now, obviously, if he's max as special defense, he can live, but like I said, I'm expecting a fully offensive one regardless. Another huge hitter up next for our team is a Choice Scarf Victini carrying the moves V-Create, Send Headbutt, Bolt Strike, and U-Turn. Really nice coverage. His team is really susceptible to mons that have a lot of coverage, and lucky for us, we do have quite a lot of our main attackers being having a very diverse move pool. And like I said, it's a Choice Scarfer. It's there for speed control. Now, V-Create is obviously something that everybody runs on Victini just because it's so spammable. It's a nice nuke. It does so much damage, even resisted hits, which you're going to see some of the calcs in a second. But basically, it's a general nuke. It hits Weavile, it hits Azelf, it hits Weavile, hits Azelf, which it kills them, obviously, because they're really frail. Umbreon takes over 60% minimum. It does 79% minimum to max HP Nidoqueen. Altaria is not a switch in after one rock round, because if it's not Mega Evolved, it takes 25% entry and then will actually go down to a V-Create, which is really pretty funny. So, Banded Talonflame, which is the Talonflame variant I'm expecting the most, takes a 60% minimum and dies after rocks. It might even die after recoil without rocks. I'm not sure about that. I did not do that calc. But if it... Yeah, I mean, it depends on how much bulk, because we're investing a lot of bulk, as you'll see in a second. So I don't know about that one, but it definitely dies after rocks. Zen Headbutt is really the odd move out. Like, I didn't really have anything else that I needed. I figure I might as well carry a secondary stab just to hit in Altaria a little bit better, and it also hits the Nidoqueen. It usually gets a 2 KO on an offensive variant, and then I can use it against a more bulky variant, but V-Create actually does more damage to said Nidoqueen. It's just I would rather use that Headbutt if I didn't need to risk the drops affecting me poorly. Bolt Strike is only there for the Talonflame. Basically, we click Bolt Strike and it dies. U-Turn gets me some nice momentum into my other hitters, and Weavile is actually killed after rocks, so that's pretty good. And then we have Adamant, just because it hits as hard as possible. Now, if you didn't have... I'm sorry about that, my nose really itches. If he didn't have the Weavile and he didn't have the Altaria, I would have definitely brought Banded to this game, just because we don't really need the speed other than other than for the Weavile, and if you didn't have the Altari, we could pretty much just spam the V create. Also, like I mentioned in my pregame, he has to bring his Gligar to switch into V create, but if he for some reason brings a weird Spadef variant, Spadef actually gets 2-hit KO'd, so that just kind of more bones to the fact that he has to bring a physically defensive variant. So the EVs, I'm investing a lot of bulk just to take a Brave Bird as well as possible, and then we can knock out with the Bolt Strike. 108 speed allows us to outspeed Jolly Weavile, and then also an Adamant Altari at +1. So after Dragon Dance, if it's weakened, we can allow it to set up a Dragon Dance, weaken it, and then we can knock it out. Actually, after like an Ice Punch from Lucario or something like that, we can switch in on the Dragon Dance. Well, not switching on the Dragon Dance, but we can definitely live a hit as long as he doesn't go for another one. Unless he has Earthquake. See, that's the other thing. He could have Earthquake on his little target. That's another reason I didn't bring Band. So, with the speed, so you see 263 uninvested speed, like without the Choice Scarf. So V-Create will drop at one stage, which will basically negate the Choice Scarf, but 263 allows us to outspeed Jolly Mightyena as well as several other of his slower things on his team, like the Roselia and crap like that, so we can potentially fire off 2 V-Creates instead of 1 before having to switch out. Lastly, I know you guys have been hanging in there, but lastly we have Crocodile. Crocodile was actually a last-minute ad by my boy Verd. I built this team larger by myself, and I had him look over it just see if there were glary holes. And the first thing he told me was, "Bro, you don't have a good check to like a banded Talonflame. It just kind of murks your team." So originally I was bringing Crocodile regardless, but originally it was a more offensive variant to get a KO on a Nidoqueen. But we changed it around just to take on banded Talonflame a little bit better. So moves-wise, we are carrying the Rocky Helmet, shout out to Envy, and the Intimidate ability. We have Stealth Rock, Taunt, Earthquake, and Knockoff. Now, Stealth Rock is very, very important in this game. I went over it pre-game and mentioned it like 5 or 6 times just because a lot of his team is weak to it, and it gets a lot of other KOs that we wouldn't have without it. And it weakens the Talonflame, it weakens the Weavile, it breaks a potential Sash on a Zelf, it breaks a potential Sash on Weavile, but like I mentioned, he doesn't... My team has so much offensive pressure that it pressures him not to take a turn to set up a Swords Dance, so I don't expect a Swords Dance Weavile to be something he would bring. So yeah, it breaks the Sash on that. It puts Nidoqueen in the range of Final Gambit. It puts Weavile in range of U-Turn, and yeah, so we either severely weaken a lot of his offensive threats, or we put them in range of other attacks for our teammates to handle. Taunt can prevent hazards from Roselia or Gligar, or especially Gligar's Defog. We do outspeed that. We can taunt it, and then we can go out to one of our other attackers with coverage moves to hit it. And then we are carrying Knockoff. So Earthquake, well actually I skipped Earthquake, my bad. Earthquake hits the majority of his team for decent damage. It has a good chance to kill offensive Nidoqueen after rocks, and it 2 KOs most of his team. Knockoff Oko's a Zelf, and it also just provides good utility. I don't know if he's going to bring a random Scarfer, but he could bring that. He could Recovery on the Nidoqueen, knocks that off. It gets rid of the Violates. He has Jigglypuff, and he has the Roselia, more so the Roselia. And then Knockoff can actually kill the Talonflame after it switches into rocks one time. Nature-wise, even though we are running a more bulky variant of Crocodile, we're still running Adamant Nature just to hit it as hard as possible. So the EVs, you see a lot of spread there. The spread's not as complicated as it looks at first. So what I did was I built this defensively out. So I worked on the defensive categories first, and then split up the more offensive areas, being speed and attack. So the bulk avoids a 2-hit KO from an Adamant Brave Bird it avoids a 2-hit KO from okay, I gotta think about how I word this. So with our bulk, we can easily avoid a 2-hit KO from a Talonflame's Brave Bird if it's an Adamant variant. Even if it's Choice Bandit, it can only do like 48% max. So as long as we get the Intimidate off, we're good to go. And plus, it'll be taking a lot of damage from Recoil and Rocky Helmet. 68 attack EV is just for max attack output. I think it allows us to 2-hit KO Nidoqueen if we need to do that. And then it just dropped 20 instant def, which means offensive Nidoqueen can't one-shot us with Ice Beam. And then a defensive variant, we actually have a chance to not be 2-hit KO'd, so that's pretty good too. And then we have 40 in speed. I'm not sure if I really need this. It's modest. It's like uninvested base 65, so like Roselia, and I think there's one other one whose name I've forgotten. But yeah, so, and then we can use it to outspeed. Like I said, it outspeeds the hazard setters basically, so we can taunt them. Anyway, guys, that is the team we are rocking with this week. I'm actually about to play him in an hour or so, so hopefully it goes to our favor. If you guys enjoyed this explanation, I know once again it's long, but if you enjoyed it, if you like the team builder, go ahead and leave a like, leave a comment if you so desire, and subscribe for more League and Pokemon content. Anyway, guys, I am Stab, and I am signing out.